Alrighty, let's start. Everybody got their financials from Carrie? And you got your tax revenues? Tax revenues are a little disturbing. They're down year over year. I suspect part of that is the movie theater. Lord knows if it'll ever reopen. And then 24th of this month, Harps is closing. And you'd like to think that those that have been going to Harps will perhaps go to Allen's, but that isn't always necessarily the case. They could be going to Bentonville if they're solid Harps, or they could be going up to Jane to Walmart. So we're going to have to watch this really closely. We talked about it at the last staff meeting, and I gave all the department heads a heads up that we may have to cut back. We're just going to have to watch it really, really closely like a hawk. So at the moment, it's just 1 month. But December was down too. Granted, it's in a previous year. Dan Douglas is still moving forward with his bill to do the internet tax, but that won't take effect until October. And so we'll see some relief, I'm sure, but it won't be enough to be able, if we still keep drifting backwards. So keep our eye on that.
What about the new highway bill? When does that come into effect? Have they adopted that, or is that still?
Yeah, it's been adopted, signed. I think that'll be July, if I remember correctly.
When the cash will start flowing out?
Well, we're not going to see a lot out of that we don't see today. That basically just kept the status quo.
Oh.
Okay. Because
Doesn't it go into effect 90 days after the?
No, I think it's 90. Yeah.
90 days after the session ends.
But
after the session ends.
Ends, yeah, not the time that he signs the bill. Yeah, the way it's been described to me is if he had not signed it or it hadn't gone through, our turnback fees were in trouble. And I'm hoping that they're going to adjust it after the 2020 census, because it's always the latest census, and right now we're working on streets on a turnback on a 2010 census that's about 4,000 people behind. So it makes it tough.
Has anyone talked to our representatives about changing the rule on distribution to the districts?
That was talked about. That was talked about in the House and the Senate as part of passing the bill, and they decided to keep it the same. It's the same split. It's 15-15 and...
No, I'm talking about between the transportation districts, which we have maybe a reach into.
Oh, I certainly don't have a reach into it.
Okay.
Did Bill talk about it at all? Over in Centerton?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
So we're a percentage of the county, right, in the state. And so even though we go about 4,000 residents, I mean, are we going to stay in proportion to what Bentonville and Rogers? And I wonder what the projections are.
It remains to be seen.
We may not gain a whole lot of anything,
So
because our percentage of growth is nothing what everybody else's is.
you look at all those apartment buildings and everything going in down there, and it's like,
Yep.
Well, look at Centerton, what, 3 times bigger than they were 10 years ago?
So it'd be nice to have a hotel. We've had yet another broker approach us for the land across from City Hall. We have to send them down to Cooper Communities and never seen again. Just frustrating.
What about the land where the grocery store was proposed? Or a hotel?
It's not zoned commercial.
Which grocery store is that?
Betty Garcia's land.
Oh, Betty Garcia's? Yeah. Well, first of all, it doesn't have water. That's the big concern.
Around the corner too.
Well, the water's right across the street.
Actually, it runs right down alongside the property, but it's POA water and they won't share.
That's a POA, but I'm saying if you're around the corner from that, if you get a water district.
Well, we still have to put the pipes and bring it up
No, I know.
71.
I realize that, yeah.
It's an expensive venture.
it's a possibility, but it's a ways off.
It's a ways off, yeah.
And there are grants and fairly low interest loans available through the.
Yes, that in City Hall and a cop shop and your water and where's it going? You just can't keep spending it.
No, I understand.
You just can't keep spending it.
Okay, so we're going to keep our eye on the tax. Appreciate if you do the same too. And if there are no questions with the financials, we're still very healthy on the reserve side, as you've seen. After we get through January and February, the meeting agendas tend to be a little shorter because we've gotten through all the purchasing and new contracts and that type of thing. So, moving on to old business, there's the first ordinance, and you'll see that staff has requested this to be tabled indefinitely, which will effectively kill it. Doug, do you want to talk to that at all? That first ordinance?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we go to the next one, is a partial vacation of a subdivision plat, and that is
I'm sorry.
I'm hoping everybody's
Mayor
had a
Christie.
chance to look at it.
Mayor Christie, could we just back up just for a second?
Sure.
So, which rezone was this? This wasn't the church property?
Was this the church with the, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
But it has to go back to the planning commission, right?
Right,
Yeah, I would
So
need to
that's
go back
why-
to the planning commission.
Yeah, so it'll
If
be
you-
different
if you
when it comes
take
back.
because they
over
wanted
the
to
parcel.
set up the office, right? Well, it's not even zoned for an office, because they were just zoning it for the sign. So they have to go back to the planning commission and go all the way back through it again until it comes back to us. So the language and everything will change by the time it gets to us. So that's by tabling it indefinitely, it pushes it off so they have a clean slate to come in again.
So the plan is to rezone the house as well?
Yes,
Is that right?
yes,
Which is on a separate parcel, however.
right, that's correct.
Right, that was the problem.
Separate parcel from the church?
No.
No.
Separate parcel from the parking lot that they were requesting be
Put the sign.
rezoned commercial.
Yeah,
Where they were going to put the office was on the church property.
Is the office already there?
Yeah,
The property line just needs to be moved over.
zoned as an office.
Okay, got it. So they're gonna start over. Start,
Basically,
if they want
yeah.
a sign and a legal office.
Mm-hmm.
Got it, thank you.
okey-doke. So the first ordinance then is a partial vacation of a subdivision plat. Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval of the ordinance and requesting that we waive and go to 3. Doug or Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to say? Sarah, I guess it's yours.
Yeah, it's just they're vacating just a small portion. So at first I thought it was just a property line adjustment, but they're actually just there's a slight encroachment of the driveway and part of the house onto the Cooper property and common property that is to the east of it. So they're just requesting to vacate that portion that the driveway is on and just move the little strip of Cooper property and the common property. No other residential lots will be adjusted with this replat.
Who's the applicant for that?
It's Cooper and the POA, but
And the purpose is?
I think it's just to get rid of that encroachment. And the reason why you're seeing it is because it's a vacation. It's not a simple incidental subdivision.
Do you have a graphic for that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's in your
the-
back.
it's
It's in your packet.
Mhm.
Did I not go far enough? Fine, stop.
No, it's right in the front. Here you go.
Anybody got any questions for
Got
Sarah?
this. Just a little bitty red line.
It's the,
And there should be the,
Did you go to the website, or
The
are you looking
flag
at
on
the
there, too.
PDF that was emailed to you?
Looking at the one that.
You got to go to the website and pull up.
It's
the
not
whole
on the
packet.
agenda, it's in the packet.
And I just uploaded your.
that's what I have.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to click on the link to get the whole packet on the website.
so it just, yeah, it's that house right there. And I think the plat is the next page over. Or next page down. Maybe a couple pages. There we go. That's,
It's right here. They're fixing that.
Okay,
The planning commission doesn't see that because it's vacation of a plat?
right, it's, yeah, it's just needs your approval here. Well,
Well,
actually,
no,
actually,
no,
they
it's
did.
not
Sorry,
plan.
They did.
they did do it.
See, 'cause the
Sorry.
house is
Whew.
actually over the wall.
In the March meeting, they looked at it and approved it.
They approved it.
So
Now,
now
we
it
don't
goes to
normally-
you.
Well, we don't normally see everything that they approve.
That's right.
Right, right.
This is a vacation.
But
This
because
is
it's
a
a vacation,
We
not
don't see
a
lot
physical
splits and
property
things like
line.
that, but we
Okay.
see like vacations of right-of-ways and things like that.
Right, right.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, any questions before we move to B? Okay, the next, I've explained to some of you, we do not have gas, natural gas, inside the city. And the piece of land that is in between Cry Lake and Walgreens, as you know, is about to be developed. And a restaurant is going in there, and the owner of the franchise that's going in wants to use gas. And so the owner of the land said, sure. Well, they're going to have to bring gas from McDonald's, borough under 71, borough under 40, go up the side street, and borough under our street, and then bring up and go over the Cooper Strip, and then run it into the property. Problem is, we don't have any kind of franchise agreement. So Jason and I met with Black Hills probably 5 weeks ago. We met with their lawyer and some other members of their team, and between Jason and their legal team, they were able to craft a franchise agreement, which I believe is in,
Yeah, it's not
the whole thing is in here. Some people have asked, does that mean that gas is going to be brought into the whole community? No. They have no plans at this point to do it. They pursued it years and years ago, and it was too expensive. So they backed away from it. But they are going to try and accommodate this one particular commercial request. So that's why we have to go through all this. And that's why we'd like to move fairly quickly, because the fellow was almost ready to put the spade in the ground and start building. So we'll move to third and final, then declare an emergency so that he can move as quickly as possible to start putting that.
I guess they must have got the approval from Cooper to go across their easement.
They're still working on it, but I don't anticipate there'll be a problem. That's
I
only
don't think
one.
you can condemn that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you can, but it's easier just to, for one piece, just to go to Cooper and negotiate.
Okay.
Was it possible they might do a few other things here and there, like this one, and just...
It's interesting you raised the question, because I looked at them and said, so you're going to go to all this expense for one business? You're going to have to hope that he's using an awful lot of gas. Have you approached Walgreens? Have you approached Cry Lake? No. Are you intending to? No. So it's an interesting business model.
So the question is, does this open the door for them to construct gas lines throughout the city?
No. They would still have to go through process to be able to do that. But it would mean that the franchise agreement is in place if they decided to do it and they had the ability to do it and went through all the processes. They'd have to go through Doug on the planning side. But they have given us no indication that they're going to bring any gas in at all.
So how do we get to that next step, if that's something they desire or we would desire?
Well, it's not really whether we desire it or not, it's whether they wish to supply. And based on their last experience, I don't think they'd do it. The main reason was Cooper, as you know, has an easement that goes around all the houses. And in order to bring the gas in off the street, they would have to actually get Cooper's permission for every single house that wanted gas. And he was asking too much money, is my understanding last time. So they're not prepared to go in on the residential side, plus there's a lot of rock, as you know, around here as well. So no, I don't believe they're going to do anything. Okay? Okay. Okay, the next is a resolution to purchase 3 acres of land from Cooper for $57,000. It's $19,000 an acre, the going rate is 20 to 21. This is looking into the future now, where we're going to have to do something with fire station number 3. It was built back in the mid-'80s, Chief?
86 is
86. Showing its age, not really a fire station that we need these days in order to support the growth that we're seeing on the west side.
Is that the corner by by Brentwood? Is that
Yeah.
what we're looking at?
Yeah, Hindenburg and
All of it or just part of it?
just half of it.
Just half.
Okay.
He's got a sign that says 6, we don't need 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's been for sale since before we put the fire station
Yeah.
up.
So he agreed to sell us 3. So if we approve this on Monday, then it'll go through the planning commission, have to do the lot split, all that kind of stuff to get it set up properly.
Did we get the corner or did we get just street frontage?
No, we got a corner, didn't
We
we?
got the corner?
So we can come off Hindenburg.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yep. Anybody got any questions?
Well, what would be the timing on actually building on it?
Oh, that's going to be a much larger discussion once we find out how much the police station may cost.
Yeah,
How much do we want to try and bundle in? How are we going to pay for it? All those discussions are yet to be had.
yeah.
This is just securing the land,
Just securing
just
the
so
land
it
to get
doesn't
ready.
get sold out from underneath us for.
It's a nice piece
future
of flat
property.
land. It's in the right proximity. And so we might as well prepare for the future and make it easier. If it isn't this council, it may be another council in the future that has to look at it.
Yeah, the overall goal is to put an ambulance back out there, have an ambulance and fire protection at the same time.
If there was development that would take place on the west side of the interstate eventually, which is gravel, city limits, is that right? Like, they would be responsible for fire protection over there,
That's
or
right.
would we? Okay.
We would end up taking the first call.
That's right. Well, if it's inside the city, or if it's inside the unincorporated part of the city that's going to be our response area anyhow, then that station at this time will take that call. That's correct.
But even if Gravett can't take the call when it's right on the border,
Well,
then the
he's
mutual
talking-
assist.
That's right, but he's talking about the unincorporated area.
No, not necessarily. I was talking about in Gravett city limits as well. Just,
In theory, Gravett is responsible, but they couldn't respond in time, and seconds are crucial in a fire. So we'd get the call because we have a mutual aid with Gravett.
That's correct.
who owns that property over there? On the other side of the interstate, in Gravett?
You got in Gravett?
Yeah. I don't know. I was just curious.
I know McClinton Acre owns some of that, but that's not in Gravett. And then Cooper owns a lot of that property as well west of the interstate, which is in our response area. All that's in our response area, Bella Vista's.
Okay.
About 2,000 acres roughly, 2,200.
Because we also respond into lower Missouri at times, especially on the EMS side, Chief.
That's correct. We go to Highway 90.
Your response area, does that include the Cooper Reserve lands west of the highway?
Yes, it does. We cover actually all the way to, we actually got a portion that goes all the way to Sulphur Springs and back over. That's our response area.
Do you have a map anywhere with that?
At the station I do, I can,
Is it
you can pull it up
electronic?
online, just look at our boundaries, our response district through the county, and it shows that, split that piece of area.
Same as, we have an agreement with Bentonville, and there are times when all the ambulances are busy, that we'll call Bentonville and they'll send an ambulance up here in case we need them.
Yeah, we've done that since the beginning of time too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ambulance or a fire truck, either one.
We even went, called one of them once. They were all busy. We went that way once.
We go there occasionally, not as much as they come here though.
Okay, shall we move to the next? This is an appointment of Tamara Tisner.
I have one more question on
Yep.
that one, sorry. Did we have that in the budget? I meant to check.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's in the
Yeah.
budget. All right.
Oh, absolutely. That's in the capital budget, Steve.
Very good.
The next is replacing Dave Barfield. Dave's done a very nice job for us. He now wants to move on and do other things, and Damara has stepped in. Her resume is in your packet. I think she'll make a fine addition to the team. Any questions at all? Similarly, the next one is a reappointments to the Board of Construction Appeals. The Board of Construction Appeals rarely meets, Doug.
Only if there's a
Once in a blue moon type. But nevertheless, you still have to have it in place. And so this is approving the appointments of actually 4 people who sit on the board there today. And they all agreed to the reappointment. And the last one is one that we do every year. That's for the street department. Is we go out to bid, and you can see the bids and everything in your packet. And this is for mowing.
Did we get more than one bid?
Mike, did you get more than one, or was it just the one from seasonal?
We sent it out to, I think, 13, I think it was 13, it's in the packet there, but
Yeah.
no, we only got one back. And it's the same company that's been doing it for us for the past 5 years.
Why do you think nobody else bids on it?
Most of your temp agencies deal in like clerical and that type of thing. Not a lot of them, this is kind of a unique.
Like, this is just providing personnel, this is not bidding on,
That, yeah.
you're not going to landscape companies and saying who wants to,
Oh, no, because
wants
we
it?
own 6 tractors already. So it's.
you
it's
just
cheaper
need,
than
you just
all.
need manpower,
We just need
people
manpower.
power.
Yep.
Yeah, we have all the equipment.
Got it, good, all right.
Okay, on to the discussion items. The first is the Trafalgar Road fire update. I sent each of you an email today. Basically, it's what appeared in the Saturday paper. Because quite literally, we aren't told anything other than what we're finding in the press. And when they send out a press release out to the world, they copy us as well. But this was a good article. It was written by Doug Thompson. And it lays out the work that they're doing for site prep. They have 2 things left, which is basically the access road that needs to be built along with the containment area for water. And in here, they state that they had to go and get approval from an F&A offshoot. They've done that. And weather permitting, construction is estimated to take about 3 to 4 weeks. And we're hoping that they're going to start sooner than later. As far as the actual fire suppression and the extraction, what they're basically saying is that they're still working on the statement of work. And I'm hoping that by the time they finish building the access road, then they're able to move. And since we last met, as we all know, they now have additional funding to the tune of $20 million, which the governor signed off on last week. And so it's time for them to start moving and get this done. But quite literally, we do not have a bat phone going to the governor. And we are not included in any meetings, any planning. And that irks me a bit. I also understand the governor put ADEQ in charge and gave them the money. And we are 264 miles, according to your statement, that you went down there. So that makes it difficult. It's 3 to 3.5 hour drive. As I was down there last week again with Chief, speaking to yet another committee about another topic. We're going to talk about it later. And so it's a whole day when you go down there. But it is what it is. So as we get more, of course, we'll keep sending it out to you. Yes, Linda?
Have they definitely decided not to look at the $3 million
That's what we've been told. That's right.
possibility?
Yep.
The guy couldn't answer a lot of specifics and didn't seem to know a whole lot about it, did he?
I don't know. I don't know what the answer or the reasoning that they turned him down. They just made it clear that they weren't prepared to take that route and they were going to go back and look at the other ones that had been offered as part of the N-Safe package that was put together in January. If you remember that package, there were 7 different types of solutions. And then in the back, separately, They basically said, it really doesn't matter which one you select, you still have to do this prep work, and they laid it out. They had said 4 to 6 weeks, well, they're late already. So last, I had a conversation with, I guess he's the project manager, 4 weeks ago maybe, and he said that they were going to be late. Now, the weather hasn't helped that much either. But they were going to have the county, if you remember, do this, and they approached the county, and then they changed their mind and decided to go to private contractor. So,
How much of the prep work is left?
All of it.
no,
All of it,
no,
just
no,
about.
no,
They've
No.
got the road around the outside, correct?
no, that's a fire break. They still have to build the access road on the out,
You
all
know,
around the rim at the back, and that's what they're talking about in here. And then they have to build containment dams, so that, it sounds like they're going to use water on it, but they can't let the water run into the creek at the back and go into Lake Ann. They've got to trap it and then pump it out. At least that's what the plan said. And I suspect that's what they're going to do. But they have said that they understand there's a sense of urgency, which is good. And that they also have said that in the event their plan is finalized, they're going to come up here and they'll present it to us and the residents. So, but if we do get anything else coming through, or Cassie sees something on their webpage that would be of interest to you, then certainly we will cut paste and send it out to you.
I guess I was encouraged by the Louisiana ADEQ coming up with a mobile testing unit for air quality.
It just puts it back another 30 days.
You know, the
But
testing is
results
great, the
were
testing is fine.
basically.
It's always been,
The one thing that the Louisiana people could do that I guess no one else was able to do is test at night, because at night it does get bad.
But they have that mobile unit that goes around and samples through the neighborhood as well.
Yeah, but the problem is, the mobile unit was so large, it couldn't go down a lot of the streets because it couldn't negotiate the cul-de-sac.
it's like
Ken,
walking trucks.
did you put this on the
Sometimes they
Chicago
park on the highway and
Road
take a small
Fire
truck and always
website
have
on the city? I think I looked, I don't think this, are you gonna put this
Is
out
that
there?
the one from over the weekend?
Yeah, the one that,
Yeah, it was up there.
it's there, okay.
Okay,
Where are we at, Mayor Christie? Are we still on Trafalgar Fire?
yep,
I'd like to suggest again that we put this explicitly on our regular session agenda.
I think we had already agreed to do that, yep.
Okay,
It'll be in the report section,
very good.
okay?
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, sunset. I believe I sent you out an update. No, that's not it. Doug, we got the aerial photo over the weekend from the architect.
Yes, sir.
And they went back and did some more cuts on the hill.
Yeah, they've completed a 3-to-1 slope on the hill. Their engineer sent us some revisions on the retaining wall. We've sent those over to Garver, our engineers, and we're waiting a response from them on how to proceed.
Okay. The last thing we want to do is have that wall collapse after they put the road in. That's not going to make a lot of sense. So we want to make sure it's stable. And they already have variance, isn't it? Have we got that?
I believe so.
All right, so Garver should get back to us this week?
We're hopeful. They sent us a lot of information, a lot of documents for him to review, so it could take longer than this week.
You know, it looks like the cuts kind of go into the road, actual road, do they?
The one at the very top did, just a little bit on.
So will the road go back over the top of that once they get it all built back up? Is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah, that's what their variance was for. They encroached on the
Okay.
shoulder just here, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Mercy Road Bridge. I approached the Walton Family Foundation. I had a response today. They didn't say yes, they didn't say no. So I went back again and gave them more information. I believe I sent out to you Ryan Castor's note that he sent to Doug. Did everybody see it? Okay. So they're going to submit a final report on April the 3rd, and by that point, we're going to have to make a decision what you want to do with this. Carrie also sent you out a message, I believe, on the 22nd of February with all the financials. Yeah.
24th.
Okay, well, she sent it to me.
I'm sorry, I got 22nd. That was a reply
Yeah.
back from her.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Where she lays out the funding and what has been paid, to this point, and then what our exposure would be if you want to keep going on it. I did explain to Jeremy Pate, who's with the Family Foundation, in my reply today to him, that at one time there had been a proposal to build a bridge behind Allen's as part of the Razorback funding. However, the problem is that is all floodplain back there, and it would have been a very, very expensive bridge because you'd have to take it all the way over behind where the vet hospital is, that parcel there, and then bring it all the way back over. And so it just became too expensive. But I've asked him to look at it because maybe that was cheaper. I never saw the final price. I was just told it was expensive. But maybe that's a cheaper option than helping us. Don't know.
Looking at the plan, it shows that that pedestrian way is part of the bridge, correct?
It's the north side.
So is that something that's fully fundable at the 80-20 rate with RDOT?
It's included in the pricing, yeah.
But are they participating on that part of the cost?
It's my understanding they are, yeah.
Okay.
Linda?
I was one of the earlier people that recently brought up objections to this project, and I still think it's a terrible way to spend $5 million regardless of who's paying for it.
Yep.
However, I am also aware of the potential ramifications of us stopping a project midstream and how that might impact us in the future. So because of that, I would probably reluctantly remove my opposition to the project.
Well, again, let's see what the foundation comes back. They may come back and say, okay, we'll go into partnership with you, which will make it easier.
How old is that bridge? Do we know?
Not very.
97, I think?
Why, the bridge? We
Was
have
it built in
metal 90s
97?
in there. Started out as a cheap project just a few feet north of where the walking bridge is on Lake Bella Vista. But then when the feds got involved, it got to be an $8 million bridge, a couple hundred yards upstream. The creek only used to be as wide as it is running through the golf course, but when the feds got involved, all of a sudden it got to be 100 plus yards wide and X number of yards long. Just when you play Burke's there, which is closed now, you get maybe 100 feet of creek. Well, that's all the whole thing was, all the way down. But once the feds got involved, it became quite a bit longer, and the creek got quite a bit wider, just to satisfy them.
Interesting.
I guess I would have to concur with Linda's comments. I've not been overly supportive of spending the money because I can't justify the need in my mind. We're doing what we're doing. There is some benefits there, and they are tangible. But I think it's an expenditure that we need to, in the future, look very closely and scrutinize before committing to.
Jim, was there a lot of scrutiny and everything done when this was first put on the table?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of fighting because they didn't want to move it. They got forced to move it. And then the county built it, and that was some of the problem. When they were dynamiting, some of the rocks went all the way across the highway and ended up on top of the buildings across the road. Yeah, because it would have been a lot cheaper just to move it a few feet from where it was.
Sure.
The feds wouldn't let them do it. All of a sudden it'd become a navigable stream, and we're in charge now.
Be careful what you wish for.
Too, I'm not really, I don't know how it could have an impact on the city in the future. What this might be able to do for us additionally down the road if some decisions are made, to further, develop the commercial properties up and down 71. You know, if somebody's, I don't know. Kind of getting ahead of some of that maybe a little bit.
Maybe. It's a pretty expensive way. I'd rather spend $57,000 on land for a fire station than this. But there was always that proposal that there would be a bridge of some description so that, you know, the Razorback would come across, go through that shopping center, or perhaps in the back of it, and then eventually end up going all the way to Missouri. And the only way to do it was along the highway. So that would effectively stop it. Did look at the possibility, maybe a year ago, of a hanging bridge off the existing bridge. And I was very quickly told by the engineers that that wouldn't work, for whatever reason. That would have been cheaper.
The structure needs to be designed for the added weight. Probably wasn't.
Okay, so that's Mercy Road, so we'll stand by for more. Linda, you wanted to talk about Town Hall?
Yes, I know we've all, or most of us have been frustrated when people come to speak in the public input session and we're not able to fully respond to them, and how that is hard on everybody. And I was wondering if we might consider at least quarterly or monthly having a town hall where the mayor and or council would meet with our citizens, similar to the POA's Coffee with Tom, on an informal basis to just discuss things, so it's not, so that we're more available versus just having a kind of jarring confrontation is not the right word, but exchange at city council meetings.
Well, I think the city council meeting is partly intended to be that town hall. And I've advocated for us to be more responsive when we hear people who have an issue that they want us to address. And rather than creating another meeting that tries to do exactly that, I don't know why we wouldn't just try to integrate that into our city hall, into our city council meetings.
Well,
I don't see any difference in terms of our ability to address those issues.
Well, I think if Jason were here, he would probably indicate there's certain things you can and can't do in a council meeting that would not necessarily apply to what I'm suggesting. I think, you know, I found the coffees with Tom for the POA to be very good, because there's a good exchange and people can talk and get answers, and you know that Tom has a lot of his staff that I think it.
But it's a different entity, isn't it? It's not the city. They're not subject to FOIA. Now, any one of us could do coffee with Linda, coffee with any one of us, and we can have those kinds of one-on-ones. But if we're together and we're operating on a city function, the rules are going to be no different than they are in a city council meeting.
I'm not sure that's correct. That would be a question for Jason. I'm not making a legal determination. I'm just saying.
There's a different set of ground rules that the POA can do with their meetings that we have difficulty clearing a hurdle around.
No, I'm cool with that. But I just wanted to float the idea that
Did you talk to Jason at all before he left about this?
No.
See, it's not understanding. I mean, we actually talked to a couple people when we were at the AML meeting, and you can make your city council meeting anything you want it to be, really. I mean, it's up to the city council to set the rules for those meetings, and I would just be for including something into that. You know, if a council member had something to say, let maybe go ahead, and again, you know, we're just kicking things around, but let the public make their comments, and then maybe, you know, kind of like we have at the last couple meetings, you know, have an opportunity for us to make a comment or to respond at that particular time. And one thing you have to be careful, you know, getting into this, you know, kind of back and forth thing, you don't want to make it that. No. But at least have an opportunity to give a perspective from our seats up here or to respond, you know.
Did you forget what happened when Peter opened that first meeting up? I mean, it was about 30 seconds from James standing up and telling you to shut you know, if we had this other thing, I think it would be much better than trying to hang on a city council meeting.
James,
Because I almost got up, but James in the back, chief of police.
oh,
Got it?
Until,
You know, because when they started flipping off and getting, you know, in swear words and stuff,
right.
that's what would happen if you did what we did here, because that was just an example of what happens when you open them up.
Oh, I don't think so.
If you did it this way,
I think,
it would be more informal right off the bat.
Jim, on the contrary, I think the frustration that we were hearing from people had to do with the fact that we had not been sufficiently responsive to their previous input.
They had the same information we had, which was nothing.
You can't sit here and smile at people and tell them thank you for your input. That's
I
not
wasn't smiling
our
at
role.
anybody.
Okay, well, nobody.
We lost control of the meeting. Don't tell me different.
That, I don't disagree
So,
with that.
you know,
We have to control the meeting.
So hanging it on a city council meeting, same thing could happen. Having a town hall meeting where you know it's informal right off the bat and you set your ground rules makes much more sense than having it at a city council meeting.
I don't think that's a typical practice across the cities of the state of Arkansas. I don't think that's what the AML advocates for. I think instead they advocate for the city council meeting to be the people's meeting, to allow them to have input and to respond to that input
And
as appropriate.
not that many do it.
I don't think it would have been, I don't quite frankly think, especially early on, it would have been a whole lot different. You're still going to have control of the room. We're still going to have some law enforcement in the room, regardless. It might even, I don't know, it might even have more opportunity to sometimes, depending on what the conversation might be, even become more unruly. I don't know. I just think this may be just a little bit of time at the end of the regular city council meeting to take notes and to respond. And, you know, and if people want to have conversations on the side, you know, they can contact us individually like they do now, and we can respond on a one-on-one basis. I don't know. I'm in favor of incorporating something into the regular city council meeting, personally.
Okay, well, let me talk to Jason and see if we have that kind of latitude, okay?
One of the things I noticed in that one meeting, when you and I at least said something at the end, responding to people, the meeting was so long, a lot of people had left.
They were gone.
So maybe you have to respond to them right after they're done talking.
Well, absolutely,
maybe.
John, because I think to your point, a lot of people left the meeting thinking they didn't respond again.
Yeah.
And they weren't here at the very end of the meeting, 45 minutes later at least, to see that there was response.
Yeah.
And the specific points you were trying to make,
But we might
the
need
people
to
that,
talk right after they talk, I guess, if we're ready to do it.
And just one other quick comment is I've been approached by several people who were at some of those meetings, and they wanted to talk about topics other than the stump dump, but felt that their topic seemed insignificant in light of what was being discussed about the stump dump, so they left the meeting not being able to bring up their concerns.
it was their choice.
Well, won't that happen anyway?
Not if there's
Yeah.
you know, a more informal conversation meeting.
And if they really want to talk to you, they'll stick around.
Well, one of the things that happens that's funny is, funny odd, is when there's something everybody's fired up about, you know, they'll all want to have this extra meeting and come talk. Normally, if you had the extra meeting, it would be crickets. There'd be like 3 or 4 people, and wouldn't be much to talk about. So I kind of like the idea of doing it at city council, because I don't want to go to another meeting. I'm already going to a ton of meetings.
Well, I think the reality is, though, that they have an opportunity in the sign-up sheet to speak before the council.
Yeah.
And whether they speak on a popular topic like the stump dump or something that is near and dear to their heart, they have that opportunity by signing up. It gives them the time at the podium, it gives them the time to express their concerns or present their issue or whatever they have to say. So I'm not sure that the town hall meeting is going to do more than what that opportunity is. And we get a good turnout at the council meetings.
When there's something.
When there's something, yeah, that's how.
Okay, well, let me talk to Jason and see what kind of latitude we have. I suspect you're right, that we can, because I've heard it said at AML as well, we can control what it looks like. But let me double check. He'll be back in the office on Thursday. Anything else on this topic? Okay. The next was a Jason item, so I'm going to put it on hold. The next is a PSAP concern. Chief Graves, do you want to come up and wax eloquent, please?
Sure. I don't know who's aware of this, but House Bill 1564 in the Arkansas Senate has to do with public safety. It's a Public Safety Act of 2019. It has to do with PSAPs, or Public Safety Answering Points, which is our 911 system. Anyways, we had some concern. Some of the chiefs across the state referenced the bill. The bill was written by the counties, county judges, and so was somewhat, we felt, didn't address some of our concerns. The main thing, the main sticking point in the bill that we were concerned about, right now there's about 120 plus or minus PSAPs in Arkansas. It's hard to get an exact number. The bill is to whittle it down. The bill, if it passes, which it will now, is to whittle it down to 77 PSAPs within Arkansas sometime in the future. There are 75 counties in Arkansas, and then there's North Little Rock and Little Rock, a couple pretty big political power basins. So, you know, it remains to be seen what happens, but realistically, a lot of PSAPs could be pushed out of the business and consolidated. We've been assured that the intent is not for each county to have their own PSAP, because they're very expensive, and some counties are very small with like 5,000 people, and so we were told that a lot of consolidation is going to take place. But anyways, we had a concern. We started addressing it. Mayor and I went down there last week, didn't get much headway, worked on it a few days, reached out to some folks. They're going to put forward an amendment tomorrow that is going to add some language that's going to allow this new 911 board that's going to be stood up. So there'll be one 911 board statewide that'll handle the PSAP consolidation instead of different county boards. And then there's some verbiage that's going to indicate that they're going to give the 911 board the option of increasing or decreasing PSAPs above 77 with a 2/3 vote of the board. So it'll be a long, arduous process, but I think we still have, you know, we're a secondary PSAP right now, so we're not sure what our future holds. We'll probably just remain doing what we're doing into the future, and then we may have the opportunity to become a primary PSAP based on consolidation and how it pans out in the state. We'll just have to stay active with the 911 board. That's kind of where it's at right now. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We really had a problem with that hard number, because that would have codified in law, basically codified the fact that the Arkansas can only have 77 PSAPs, so there'd really be like, you know, a lot of fighting and things like that within different agencies and counties and that to try to secure PSAP. But the thought process is that we believe that a lot of the more populated counties like Benton County, Washington County will probably have several PSAPs. We just don't know how many yet, because really it would be somewhat impossible to consolidate down to one, and then for practical purposes, and then also if you consolidate down to one in a densely populated county and that one goes out because of some weather event or, God forbid, some sort of man-made event, then really your law enforcement is down, or emergency response is down in the entire county. And so we're advocating for several PSAPs in large, densely populated counties, so you have some redundancy. That's kind of where it's at right now. The Senate's going to meet tomorrow. It's going to go to the Senate committee tomorrow. We're fairly certain it'll pass. We're going to try to go down and do a little more about it, but we've been told basically this thing is sailing through, and don't waste too much of your time right now. We'll have another chance at it as Chiefs Association, because it's not supposed to really take effect even if it passes until spring or fall of 2021, and so we'll have another chance in the next legislative cycle if we see some issues as the Chiefs Association to go back at it and see if we can make some changes. One of the big problems was that the Municipal League was neutral on it, and the Chiefs Association was neutral on it, so it was real hard to go down and do anything about it in reality.
What are the chances of us losing our dispatch center altogether?
So here's maybe worst case scenario the way I see it, and from talking to some folks. Right now, we self-fund. The only thing that gets paid for are our two 911 trunks, so that we can receive the 911 information when it gets pushed to us. That's the only thing that the PSAP, that CENTCOM currently funds for us. worst-case scenario in the future, if we can't become a primary or we aren't a primary yet, is that we may have to pay for those trunks if we want to continue to dispatch the way we're dispatching. Those trunks are, this is chainsaw math, but what I've found out approximately $80,000 per trunk every 5 years. So you're talking $160,000 the city would have to absorb every 5 years to maintain our operation as it is right now. But that's still really up in the air because they're planning on having, the way their plan is, what they call dispatch centers that CENTCOM will push calls to, but we don't understand what that's going to look like or how that's going to be, because you really have to have a 911 trunk to get an emergency call pushed your way, because you have to be able to receive all that lat long and all the 911 information. You can't do that without an actual 911 trunk, and that's what costs the money. Steve, you may know a little bit about this, so jump in if I'm missing something. But so that's, I see the worst case scenario as a city is we fight to become a primary. That never happens. Then it's decided we're going to take away your trunks. You have to centralize with CENTCOM, and then as a council, whoever's here at the time, and I bet you this is way down the road, because you know how government, things are pretty slow.
Okay, what about expensive equipment? We're going to have to, because you're going to go the whole state, 77 is going to go with one company. If we're not with that company, even if we keep our center, we're going to have to switch equipment.
No, because right now what we weren't going to. Right now, and this is the state can fund AWINS, Arkansas Wireless Information Network.
That's what started all this.
So that's what this is for, and there has to be some consolidation. We agree as a Chiefs Association, but we just think it's different between unpopulated areas and populated areas. But to answer your question, that was one of our arguments. Okay, so let me real quick. So we were never going to go AWINS. The council approved the AWINS patch in this year's budget so that we can patch over to AWINS, so we can operate internally the way we are because of our equipment. And then in emergency situations, we can easily switch over to AWINS if we need to talk to surrounding agencies that did AWINS. Like Bentonville's not doing AWINS either. And so we did an AWINS patch. But one of my arguments when we went down, which fell on deaf ears, it appeared, was all the investment we're making in equipment. And then if they say, okay, you're going to have to integrate with CENTCOM now, well, maybe our equipment doesn't integrate. Maybe our radios don't integrate because of their system. So there's a lot of it wasn't thought out, really, but that's what the 911 board is supposed to do in the future, is figure that stuff out. So I'm sure there'll be we're going to have to stay really in touch with the 911 board, and I told my folks, when they stand that board up, we're going to be at every single meeting, and they're going to get to know us, and we're going to see what's going on, because it'll be sort of a fight along the way, I think. But I think as a city, our best bet is to operate as we're doing, just push forward with the plans we have. If we end up funding a new public safety building, we fund the dispatch center, we build it like we're going to build it, because that's part of our argument, and we talked to Judge Mooring about that. That's part of our argument is, let us, if we have that dispatch center, that hard dispatch center, then that's part of our argument to become a primary dispatch, because we can say, listen, you have CENTCOM and Bentonville, the only two hardened facilities in Benton County, just right down there in Bentonville, right next to each other. So what if something happens and they both get taken out through a weather event or something? Do you really want no other PSAP in the area? So we're sort of off the line from them, and so that'll be our argument to become a primary. So I would recommend to the council that we just move forward as we are now and just monitor it. I don't think even worst case scenario things are going to change very rapidly. We may all be gone by the time really things ever affect us to that extent. But worst case scenario would be funding our own trunks to the tune of about $160,000 every 5 years.
And write this down. It'll be, Little Rock will get one of the 77. State Police will get the other one, and in North Little Rock will get the one for Pulaski County.
And that's possible. But there will be. I mean, there will be. The bill, I've read it several times, and I've talked to some folks, and there's a lot of counties that want to combine because a lot of counties don't want the aggravation of it. But it's also money, and so when the money starts flowing their way and they realize, there's AWINS money associated, maybe they change their mind when it comes down.
The 77 is because there's 75 counties.
Yes.
That's how they can look at that.
And that was our problem with the number, because it sent a real bad message to the cities, like, hey, wait a second, this is a county bill, and there's 77 PSAPs, and there's 75 counties, and so that's what made a lot of us go, wait a second here, services. So we did get that verbiage put in there that allows a 911 board, which will have a mayor on it, we'll have one of the chiefs of police on it, it will have a real good broad representation of all concerned parties, so we will have at least a dog in the fight or a couple in the ability to build
There
our.
aren't many secondary PSAPs like us either.
Not like us, not on the cusp of being a primary. I mean, I went down there and said, look, we could be a primary today with just some little bit of software updates at the provider.
We pay our own way.
So.
How many people will be on that board you're talking about?
Boy, you know, I would, just off the top of my head, when I think of all the 12, 13 maybe, there's a lot of slots. There's
12 or 13.
a lot of people.
So do we have any ability to influence the selection or?
Well, through
some self-interest on there? I mean, self-interest in terms of Benton County?
Yeah, there will be. I mean, like the Chiefs Association will appoint one, and so they'll reach out to one of the chiefs. The Municipal League will appoint one. They'll reach out to the mayors. The governor appoints several, and there's, off the top of my head, I don't remember the different organizations, but it's a pretty good representation. So in that regard, I feel comfortable with the 911 board. And it might actually be to our advantage. We're thinking about it because it's been difficult dealing with CENTCOM here because it's a Benton County 911 board. It's a lot of territorial stuff, so when you try to become a PSAP, you know, it's like, well, wait a second, but if we're dealing at a state level, it might be a lot easier in the sense of it might be a lot more reasonable to plead our case, and there won't be sort of that Benton County control. It'll be more of a state thing.
Is there any benefit in moving ahead a little bit and getting to the primary status for us?
We can't. The problem is they did this really slick. There's a law in place that doesn't sunset until July of 2020 that precludes any new PSAPs from being stood up. That's why we were preparing for this. So then when this came about, we're like, wait a second here. They pulled the rug out from under us because this law will go into effect before the other law sunsets, and this law says that there's some strict guidelines to become a primary, and basically it's either you are absorbed or you combine with another current primary and or you take the place of an existing primary. And the way I read that is as they consolidate and PSAPs are available, we plead our case over and over again, and you know we do what we have to do in the political realm and logically, and then if PSAP positions open up throughout the state, they stand a couple down somewhere down in some other part of the state, and then they slide one, and we can become a primary, but it'll be hard, it'll be difficult.
I will say that Salem Springs is against it, Fayetteville is against it, Bentonville is against it.
Rogers is against it.
And Rogers is against it. Primarily because the way that it was positioned to all of us was there will be one per county. And that just didn't make any sense. And I spent a lot of time on the phone talking to Judge Mooring, and he agreed that that didn't make a lot of sense either. That there had to be at least two, possibly three. The mayor of Fayetteville is also in agreement. Because if you only have one per county, it'd be a CENTCOM, because everybody has a CENTCOM. Right? So now you've got one massive one in Bentonville that's going to replace all the PSAPs that are there today. So they're taking all the calls and they're doing all the dispatching. If that goes down, that means it has to go to Washington County, and they're already going to be overwhelmed because they're going to be servicing all of Washington County. And that was Fayetteville's concern. So the judge agreed with me, yeah, we have to have at least two, possibly three. It's being driven because there is a tax on landlines that is supposed to fund this, and the landline usage is going down. So the funding is dropping, and there is not a real appetite to increase it on the mobile phones. And so at the end of the day, they saw consolidation as being the answer, so that especially the smaller ones would be able to still be able to survive on the funding that's coming in. But it raises a lot of other questions, you know, that the chief has mentioned as well. AWINs, what's the configuration of the network going to look like in the future? If we're trying to make a call, but Bentonville's trying to make a call, Gravit's trying to make a call, are we stepping over each other? Who's running off our towers out here? So there's a lot of unanswered questions. My fear is that this has been thought through only from a money side, not from an operations in a practical sense. And when Chief spoke to the committee last week, you could just tell by their very icy approach to us that they weren't interested in talking logic at all. They'd already all made up their minds that this was going to float through. And it's disappointing because had we known that this was coming sooner, we would have had more time to react. But literally we found it because we were doing our homework on preparing to become a PSAP, and we'd had an idea session in my office and jotted a whole bunch of notes down. And then they came back and said, are you aware that this bill is going through? And frankly, we rely on AML to give us a heads up if there's something coming our way that is going to be controversial, and they just decided to go neutral and didn't say anything. But I commend Chief. He took the bull by the horns, and he went out and he crafted an email on Friday that went to 83 people, mayors and police chiefs all throughout the state. And I'm very respectful, but just saying there are some problems that we have with the bill. And he started to hear back from some of the other ones saying, yeah, we don't like it either. I think Saline County was one of them. They came back. So, as Chief said, it's going to be a couple of years out before this all gets sorted out. And that 911 board is going to be crucial. And Larry, whether or not we're going to be able to influence it, it's probably too early to tell. Certainly, we know that the chiefs are going to have the ability to appoint someone to the board. On the mayor's side, we're speculating it might be AML, but it might be somebody else. I don't know. But at least they're going to change the language so that now there can be more than one PSAP in a county, but it has to run through the board.
So the number 77, while it's in the bill today, can be adjusted upwards by the board, is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, upwards or downwards.
Or
It says
downwards.
it increase or lower, and so.
First dibs will be people who already have one, which is like Bentonville and Rogers.
Big people, I think, there's some smaller
They've
people.
already got ones.
There's some smaller people that have them that I think are going to be.
Asylum Springs has one. They're a primary. If we had been a city in 1985, was it, when they assigned all the primaries, Jim?
It's been a while.
It was there
Yeah.
about.
We were told no forever, and then we said we'd pay our own, and that's how we got to secondary. That's
Because
the only
we were-
reason we got it, because we paid our own way.
That's right.
We just sucked it up, and we've been secondary for 30-plus years. That's all the closer we could get. We had to, right off the bat, you want it, you pay for it. So we did.
And that's
because
gonna
we
be-
wanted
that-
better than what we were getting.
That's kind of their approach on this too. If you don't get chosen as the one and you want it, you pay for it. That's kind of their approach. We're already paying for it. We've been paying for it for a long time, so it'll be a little more for us. But it'll be a decision for you folks to make. But I would say the problem with consolidation, even for us, is we're big enough now that if we got consolidated, let's say into a CENTCOM and they were dispatching for us, I couldn't guarantee they'd give us our own individual dispatcher, so we'd have to maybe sit there and wait for P Ridge to get done, or wait for Grappid to get done, and that would be real problematic for us not to have our own dispatcher dispatching our own folks all the time, dedicated. That's when you start into trouble, because that's how they'll save money. They'll combine and they'll put smaller agencies, which we're really not anymore, but they'll combine them all and give them one dispatcher, and you'll step all over each other as you try to do your work.
Sounds like that puts a lot of people at risk.
Yeah, sure it does.
Sure it is.
But they're not. This isn't to slight anybody, but they were thinking about it from how do we fund? Well, I'm assuming how do we fund A-wins and how do we save money? They weren't thinking about it for how do we be safe and how do we ensure continuity of service and not worry about interruptions through losing PSAPs and things like that. But so we'll just stay on top of it. It'll just be a matter of us staying on top of it.
Is there any benefit in communicating with the rest of the elected officials about the concerns?
I think the mayor did a little bit of that on our drive back from Little Rock. A lot of emails went out, and we did get some response. But it would be a matter of, through the elected officials, through the municipal league, going that route, and then we'll work the Chiefs Association. I'm sure the fire side can work their association, but we have to be involved next time. And
You have to call our local legislators and stay on them. Don't mess with, stay on our guys.
the reason we decided not to try to do anything else is Bella Vista, because it was silly, because all the big players are neutral, and so that we have no leverage. And once they put that fix in the bill on that 77 number, then the other larger, Siloam and Bentonville, they were comfortable with that, and so we just kind of let it go right now. We were told if we went down, we'd kind of be just ruffling feathers and blowing political capital right now, and when it wouldn't be any good.
You know, when I started calling on the drive back from the only one that was fully engaged was the mayor of Fayetteville. Some of the others were, I think I know something about it too, I'd never heard of it. So it took a lot of people by surprise. But by that point, it was already a done deal that it was going to fly through the House, and it did. But at least we were able to get new language inserted tomorrow. It gives us an opportunity in the future.
If they buy it.
Oh, I think they will.
Well, on the subject of legislation, it looked like that bill that Linda Lloyd brought up went through. You know, the one where the state's saying, hey, cities, you can't.
Yep.
It did.
It went through. Now, our local legislators voted against it, with the exception, let's see, because I looked at that today. Austin voted against it. Dodson voted against it. And two others local. Unfortunately, Galen McKenzie voted for it. But it was still 83 yeas and 10 nays.
Oh, wow.
There was a really good article about that in the paper just a couple days ago.
I saw that.
It doesn't sound real positive, like for a lot of cities to me.
Yeah.
It really took down building standards, it sounds like.
Yeah.
After that last meeting, when we passed that, I sent that bill to all of the people that were on that steering committee, as well as all our local legislators. The only one that responded was Dodson.
Right.
He thanked me for, thanked us for sending it and taking the position. He said, unfortunately, we didn't prevail, but...
But wait, did you notice his response? His response was, well, Bella Vista's a POA, so it doesn't matter anyway.
That's right,
Yeah.
so he doesn't understand.
That was what he said.
So I emailed him back and I said, no, wait, that's not exactly correct.
Right, yeah,
We have a POA, but we have a city overlay.
right.
That's right.
Yeah, he didn't completely understand it.
So the ACC will trump it, is what they're saying.
I understand. I got it.
The ACC is not affected by it.
No,
But there's a lot of places that aren't ACC.
that's right.
But Bella Vista is.
Okay, any further questions for Chief?
Oh,
Thank you, sir. Okay, we've had a lot of discussion about the hole in the wall. We got our hands on some additional information that suggests that at the time that they were talking to us, they knew all along that it was really in the city. And so we decided, based on that information, that we were going to put our foot down. Jason has recused himself from it because he lives in the neighborhood and felt that he couldn't give the city an unbiased answer, that he might be biased. So we hired RMP, which is Tim Hutchison. We hired him once before last year, the year before, when we were straightening out the 457, 401A situation, which is the retirement fund that wasn't set up properly way back when, so we had to go through some legal hoops to get it fixed. So Tim came on board, and we met with him. Jason gave, both he and another gentleman, Larry, who came with him, all the information and findings that he had. This is a letter that they sent out to the Hole in the Wall folks. It turns out that the addresses that he used were,
Everybody get one?
they were correct for one, but not for the other. We lifted these, or he lifted these from the incorporation documents. So we corrected the addresses, or he corrected the addresses, and he has sent the letter back out today. I won't take you through it all. It goes through the history and the new developments. And he and Larry have signed it on page 3, and then he has many, many attachments. So we haven't shared this with the neighbors yet. It's probably just as well we didn't because of the mix-up on the addresses. I have the Powells and the Largents are coming in on Wednesday to meet with me, so I'll show them this as well. So if you'd have a look at it, please, and read through it. If you have questions, let me know. Don't go to Jason because he has recused himself. And I'll let you speak with Tim or Larry if you have any questions. And if you're questioned at all by anyone, just refer it to Tim.
Could I ask Mayor Christie kind of what's the gist of what's the bottom line communication back to the property owner now?
I'm just going to share this with them and say exactly what I just said to you. What is, at the time that they incorporated, they knew
right.
that piece of land was in the city.
Right.
And then to say that they did not, and that they should be given a conditional use of the land when it's sitting in R1,
right.
isn't going to fly.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
Now, Linda did notice on the weekend they seemed to be building something. Doug sent one of our inspectors out there today. It looks as though it might be some kind of deck or platform, but it is quite small, so it doesn't need a permit. But Linda mentioned this evening that I've got to mention to Jason that with the grandfather situation, the way it was set up, they couldn't do anything. So I've got to talk to Jason when he gets back.
Yeah,
up
looks
there.
like it might be some type of little storage building or something. I don't know. I was down there today. I saw it sitting
he's
on the
left.
property.
The inspector thought that it might be a shed, but he wasn't sure. But again, it's very
Hard
small.
to tell.
Yeah.
It's just frame walls.
But they did not pull a permit. But if it's small enough, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't have to pull a permit. But if the grandfather thought is correct from Linda, then they wouldn't be allowed to do anything. So we've got to check that out first. So that's the hole in the wall. We have applied to become a Monarch City USA, the Monarch Butterfly. Mike Abb, who is a very dynamic young man who works for one of the companies that is owned by the Waltons, and is the main person who's pushing the Arboretum, actually suggested that we do this, and agreed to pay for the registration fees and agreed to pay for the sign.
Personally.
And so the only thing that I had to do was actually read a proclamation, and the garden party had a fundraiser last week, so I read it at the garden party, and they thought that was a great idea. And so he's going to write a check payable to the city, and then we will write a check and pay the invoice whenever it comes in. So we have applied for it online. It's a nice touch. Since we're now a tree USA city, and the Arboretum's going in, and they're planting milkweed and some other plants that are called pollinators, which I gather attracts the monarch. So.
I've never seen an orange and black monarch here. Yellow and black ones all over. I haven't seen an orange and black one since I've been here.
An update for you on the Maryland Arch. It's going to be located right outside the entrance to the fire and the police building. And the reason for putting it there is mainly for security and also lighting, because there are lights that point to the flag up at night. Mike's people are actually going to pour the foundation sometime this week. The base has now been put on, the sculptor, And we agreed today that we would send a city truck up with mulch in the back, and 2 members of the Arts Council will follow, and we'll probably send them up overnight because it's a 5-hour drive each way. So send them up in an afternoon, spend the night, load it the next day, and bring it back, and then mount it. So it'll be an interesting free addition to the city. Traffic signals at Kingsland and 71. The contract says that they will start May the 1st, and that will be testing the soil, that kind of thing. And it should be finished unless they hit bedrock by the 29th of August. It's 129 days. If they hit bedrock, then it'll be 150 days. For those of you with the technical bent that would like to go through any of the diagrams, these are the plans. So if you want to get lost in nuts and bolts of this thing, this is a copy that Doug has given me. I'd be more than happy to share it with you so you can take it home.
We have digital copies of those?
No, only hard copies.
How do we get digital?
They came direct from Craft and Tull, so as far as I know, there's no digital.
They would be able to provide PDF set for you.
And then lastly, I also sent you a note today about upgrading the signal equipment at 71 and County Road 40. The cameras are beginning to show their age, and some of the devices inside the control boxes are aging as well. We did replace the main controller about 2.5 years ago because we took over that light from Bentonville, and they said there was nothing more that could be done about getting better timing. Well, we proved them wrong. But the controller that came with the deal was 14 years old, so there were no spare parts available anywhere for it. So if it went out of commission, we were fixed. And
that's because the cameras do not function, and if the cameras don't function, then the
no,
timing
no,
is...
no, this was a separate issue. This was the main controller. And so we replaced the main controller. Now it's the periphery equipment, such as the cameras that are hanging off it,
Okay,
that are showing their age.
right. And is the flow of traffic dependent on
Yes.
the functionality of those cameras?
Yes.
And that if they're not functioning, we
That's right.
see those backups possibly going both ways on
Correct.
71?
Correct. Now Doug,
He just left.
Okay. I asked Doug to go and get the quote. I don't believe he has it yet. So we'll see how much it's going to cost. We had saved, if you remember, some money on the lights at 71 in Kingsland. We put in 265 in the approved capital, and it came in at 198. We'll probably need a little bit of that saving in order to do light sinks. We're not quite sure if we're going to be able to bounce off a tower, or we're going to have to bounce it off a GPS signal so that it's in sync with all the rest. We were going to take the balance and see if we could stripe all the parking areas up around City Hall, the police station, and the fire
Prisoners
station.
will do that for almost free.
Really?
You know, you just build a frame. And
Okay.
you take a little bitty roller about A wide and a bucket of yellow paint, and somebody stands on the frame, and the guy goes down to it with his little roller, and then when you get to the end, you move the frame up a little bit, and then the guy stands on the frame, and away you go. Prisoners can do that.
Okay,
All you gotta do is let them smoke and feed them lunch.
No, you're right.
And if you need you're gonna need a template for your handicap thing. I'm sure if we don't have one, POA's got one, because they put their signs up all over.
Yeah, and I know we have them at our church too. Okay, good. Thank you. That may be the answer then, because we're...
It won't cost you a thing. May take a while because they're slow, but that's okay.
You have to give out
That's
the
good.
schedule.
All right. Because what I was going to say is we may have to cancel that if we're going to be buying equipment. And we still have to
And
see.
you can do it for the cost of paint.
Yeah,
2x4s and a brush.
that'll be you.
Firemen can do it in their downtime.
I'll be a prisoner for driving my golf cart
I know.
down the street, so I'll be doing it by
You can work
myself.
off your community service.
Yeah, that's another way to get it done.
I do have something here on the Monarch USA if anybody's interested in reading it, you can see the signs that we've ordered, it's option C.
Got that digitally, why don't you send it out? If you would,
Sorry?
please.
Larry wants everything.
Do you have a hard time sleeping at night or something?
Okay, that's all I've got. Anybody have anything
And
else?
this way, you took it off, but maybe because you came to resolution last meeting, the work session, I wasn't here. The comp plan 2040.
Yes. Doug and I are going up to meet with Gould Evans. Oh, we can't see it easily here. I think it's next month. I think it's April. It's April the 11th. So Doug and I will be in Kansas City all day. It's about a 3 and a bit hour drive each way.
Has everyone read that?
I have. It's been a while, but I have. But I think that it's gone through a
It's gone
iteration
through,
since
yeah.
I have.
I think Doug has the most current.
Is that the digital that he has, or has he got a hard copy?
I don't know. Larry, you'll have to go and ask him.
Right. I guess my view is that it's a 40,000 foot view of the city and may not provide a lot of meaningful direction in the long term, short term too. So
I thought it was
that's my reaction to it.
Well,
I need to read it again.
the only problem we really had was when we showed it to Cooper, the land beside Allen's, Gould Evans had done a whole design as well as Town Center East where they're taking down the old bank now, and he wasn't interested at all.
And my sentiment is that we need to put in the plan what we would like to see in it.
Oh, we are. Absolutely we are. I'm not taking it out just because Cooper doesn't like it. It's going to stay in there. The same as they've done a whole design for what they call the boot, which is where the craft fair is, and it reaches, down 340. But most definitely, all those plans are going to stay in that thing. And I see no reason to take it out. Any other questions?
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
can I just mention that it's not definite yet, but the cabin that is being moved onto the museum property might be making its move on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be going from Pease Drive over to the museum, so there could be some traffic backups and issues when that cabin moves.
And the police are already engaged with the folks at the museum. So
We have some house to decide to.
they can direct traffic and whatnot, if need be. Anything else? All right, thanks.
You know what? Thanks for going over everything like that. It's really helpful.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody want this? If they can't sleep at night? Larry, do you want it?
Larry wants it, I'm sure.
Digital.
Then we can quiz him on it.
I can take pictures of it with my phone. Is that